Just being a baseball player and having 4 scholarship offers, smaller schools, but like D2 schools, you have the whole world in front of you and like this great opportunity, and you just quit. You just feel like you're kind of fed up with the whole teamwork aspect. I was getting really tired of at that time. There wasn't a lot of camaraderie. A lot of that was because my coach wasn't very good. And interestingly enough, it was that moment where I gravitated myself into leadership and in leading others in general. Because his lack of leadership, I said, I don't ever want to have to go through that myself. I don't want anybody else to have to go through that again, like what I went through. So I immediately went into leadership and spent most of my career in leadership. And then I got into leadership coaching because that was my main focus. But about May, June of this year, I really started feeling like, and I'd done that a little over a year, and I just didn't feel aligned with it. So, but by mid-July, I just completely stopped, and I was like, wasn't quite sure where my path was taking me. And then I did some really deep breath work sessions, and it led me to seeing myself speaking to former athletes. I saw myself speaking to people like 18, 35 to 35 years old and just talking to them. And I didn't know what I was talking about. But then as I was going through, I'm like, how does that correlate with my life? And realizing that the day that I quit, you're young, you're stupid, you're like, whatever. I realized at that point, I lost my identity and my purpose, like in life. As an athlete, from a child to the time it's done, you've worked so hard for this one endeavor, and all of a sudden it's gone. And you're like, that was your life. Like your whole identity was that athlete. And I was lost for many years trying to figure that out. And now I just want to try to help people quicken that pace,
So you brought me back to a few awesome points I'm going to jump back into, but let me stick a pin in the first one here. So when you lost your identity, right, what happened from there? When you no longer had that sport, you quit, you said, okay, what am I going to do now? Where does all this energy go? What happened to you in that space? Did you just make an easy transition into life after that? Or did you, like myself, manage to just fall off and hit rock bottom before you are where you are right now?
It was just the roller coaster. Like you go in certain paths, and then you start doing things, and you start seeking and trying to force things into existence when you're not really in a state of flow. And I kept trying to force, whether it was personal relationships, whether it was forcing myself into a certain style of work because I was seeking external validation because I didn't know who I truly was. So yeah, I hit rock bottom, but the resilience, I kept steering away. But it's kind of like you're brushing all the problems under the rug. And it got so big to where I finally just tripped and fell flat on my face. And I realized, like, I've got to start finding my true self. And that journey started, it was about a little over now, almost 10 years ago now.
Amazing. Congratulations to you, brother, because again, so many of us former athletes, that is such a true point. We go through that struggle right there. Like, we have our careers, is what all we know. Majority of us, we just have a plan A, no plan B, right? Plan B is like an escape. So cool, I don't want a plan B. Just give me plan A. This is my vision. This is my focus. This is my goal. So thereafter that is completed, we don't know what to do.
You said exactly the way I verbalize it to people all the time. They're like, so what is it? I was like, well, an athlete, they go into the world thinking, I've got my plan A. I'm not going to have anything that deters me from my plan A. But the problem is for most athletes, you're done before the age of 30. Whole life ahead of you. Like, you've got to have another plan. And maybe it's an alternate plan A. Doesn't even have to be called a plan B, but it's like, you got to have something. And unfortunately, most of them don't. And then they fall into this. They let their body go to waste. They consume calories like they used to. And yet they're not working out like they used to. They're not burning at the same level. And before you know it, a year, 2 years down the road, they're like an alternate version of themselves, and they go into a state of depression.
Exactly, because then, as you say, you're so used to this high standard, high level of performance, right? And when you're not doing that same thing, and you're noticing now, okay, cool, I'm not putting out the way that I used to. My body's not looking the same as I used to. I'm not performing at that high level that I used to. I'm not implementing this high level of energy into competition or having direction, right? Yeah, you start to fall into that space of depression because it is very, very hard to fill the void of what you're used to for so long. You mentioned a point earlier, it's completely understandable when athletes choose to not have a plan B, right? Because they only want the plan A is do or die. This is what I want. But, another part of it is sometimes you're fortunate to know when your career is coming to an end, then you can kind of start to plan for that plan B. But some athletes go to the avenue of, I had no idea my career was coming to an end. Injury, whatever, can just make that happen. And again, so whether you have created a plan or it pops upon you, it is a difficult transition, yes, but it is something that needs to happen because there's so much suffering and drifting that happens. Well, drifting first, then that falls into suffering when you have no direction, when you have no more competition. Because competition, again, that gives us purpose, that gives us direction, that gives us a challenge to rise up to. And it's what we're used to. Until we find that groove again and that flow, that we implement that same level of drive, competition, ambition that we had and dedication and hard work in the sport into everyday life, only then it becomes good again. That groove is working with what we need it to work. And for example, for me, it took me a long time because I was very passionate about sport. And living in an Olympic closing ceremony was my dream. That was my goal. That's what I wanted. Thereafter, I had business. I created my business and everything, but it wasn't something that I was very passionate about. I was just doing it because I just operated at a high level, and it was just like something for me. So it was not filling that level of energy that I had, that level of hard work, dedication that I had. I just kept filling that void with what can I replace this with? Happiness, turning to partying. Partying happened to turn into a lot of drinking. A lot of drinking happened to turn into a lot of drugs. And being a high performer, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So it wasn't one night, it wasn't 2 nights, it wasn't 3 nights, it would be like 4 nights.
It's the rush, and it's just that, filling that constant void.
Yeah, exactly. So a majority of the time when we as athletes are filling voids, it results in a bad thing. It does result in a bad thing until, you can find that vision again. You can find those values that you got to live by again. You produce those victories every day again. Master the vices that are going to throw you off of that vision. Right? Just like when you're in competition, master the vices that's going to throw you off that competition, because the competition is the vision.
Yeah. I mean, because in essence, what I've found, and after I say this, I'd love to hear like your journey and like what you did like athletically wise. But that's one of the things I tell people is like athletics for a young adult is often in a way a vice. It's an escape from maybe a reality that they're in, because I know for me, the baseball field was literally the only place in the world I truly felt safe.
Okay.
Because my parents went through a divorce at 5, and it was the only place I felt like I could escape reality was the baseball diamond. And looking back and realizing like, that's some of the reason why we even fall into being an athlete is it's literally escape from reality. And it happens. Well, I talked to a guy earlier today that was a pilot, and same thing for him. He fell into that because it was kind of an escape of reality of like what his upbringing was like,
And that's such a great point. Yeah, I mean, that's such a great point, such a true story. On my side, things is a bit different. Just something that I just love the art of what I did, which was boxing, and me and you be able to get into that, right? But yeah, such a good point. People have so much noise and hecticness and chaos happening in their everyday life that field or that ring or that court is the escape from life.
You think about like Mike Tyson, one of the greatest boxers of all time, total escape from reality for him, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. 100%. Big time.
Yeah. And now he's like super just grounded. Like he's a totally different human being because he's done the work on himself,
Yeah. I was talking to a friend past weekend. I was in West Palm Beach, and he said when he met Mike Tyson, he said, "Yo, Mike Tyson is just a completely different person. He is so calm, so cool, so humble. It's like, wow, it's like you would never ever think if you look back on his highlights, and the man right now is the same person."
It just goes to show too, so many people are like, I am who I am. I'm like, you can change at any point.
Oh yeah.
It's got to be willing to make and do the change and do the work,
Yeah. I like to call that being willing to dive into the deep work.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Because you have to, man. Like, because you get stuck in one state of mind, and as you said, you'll think that this is all it is. This is all I know. This is all I'm good at. When you need to make a shift and make a change and pivot, the deep work needs to be done in order to get you out of that space. Because you can relearn behaviors, you relearn a new way of life, And again, I'm very thankful to be in that space, right? Because all I knew was sport. All I knew was boxing. Like, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm very good at. I didn't want to think anything else.
It's like they don't want to uncover the things that they've buried. I mean, so you were a boxer. Like, what was that journey like for you?
For me, in regards to sport, well, again, it's something that I love. Like, I started 2007. Yeah, I turned elite 2009, 2010. 2007, 2009 was real. It was just kind of me wetting my feet, really. I didn't take it too serious, take it serious. And I got like, started to pay a little more attention, say, hey, let me put a little more focus, let me put a little more effort, until I got to the spot where I was able to make my elite debut. I made that debut, and it was in Quito, Ecuador, like 8,000 feet above sea level, somewhere around there. And, just the ego of the man is like, I'll be all right in altitude. There's no issue. If I ever told you I got a proper ass open, I got a proper ass open. My luck, of all the countries in the Pan Ams, I drew the guy from Quito, Ecuador, that was training in altitude already. And, he opened my eyes to a whole new level of what elite fighting is, right? He was already a one-time Olympian, right? And I was just fresh on the scene, making my elite debut. So yeah, he opened my eyes to, okay, cool. Now, Ebanks, you got to dial in. It's purely hard work, dedication. And then that's when it became only plan A. There is no more plan B from here.
No.
So took it forward, did the Florida State Golden Gloves, qualified for my first World Championships back in 2011. That was in Azerbaijan, Baku. I didn't even know where Azerbaijan, Baku was.
I don't know where it's at.
Yeah. So exactly, right? So, those are things that I would have never dreamt about. And that's the first place that it took me to. Right, Azerbaijan, Baku, in a World Championships. First person here from the Cayman Islands to ever, make it to a World Championships in boxing. Right, at least on the elite amateur level. I did continentals in Chile. It took me to Panama. It took me to Brazil. Spent a whole bunch of time in Cuba, living with the Cubans. They're the best in the world. So you want to be the best, you got to go be with the best, right? You got to compete with the best. You got to live with the best. Eat, sleep, and breathe with the best. Took me all over, man. I've been to England, Amsterdam, a bunch of places. So Caribbean Championships. Now, if we push forward, I did my second World Championships back in 2013. And that took me to a whole nother place again that I had no clue even existed. It was Almaty, Kazakhstan. So I got to go over to Kazakhstan and compete in my second World Championships. So that was 2013. I ended off my career back in 2014. So I got to the London Olympic qualifier 2012, but unfortunately I didn't make it to London, which was my dream. I wanted to box simply to experience an Olympic closing ceremony. That's what I wanted. That was my dream. That was my goal. I didn't care about pro. I didn't care about any of that. Because I have an uncle and a cousin that both went to the Commonwealth Games. So boxing's kind of been in my family. You know what I mean? I would always just see the Olympics, and that was it for me. Like, one day I was in work, and that's how I even started boxing. I was watching the Olympics on TV. There was one fighter from the Caribbean. His name was Toriano Johnson from the Bahamas, which I got to meet quite a few times during my career. I watched him box, only fighter, and I said, I'm going to the Olympics. I just looked at it and just said it. I'm going to the Olympics. That's it. I'm going to the Olympics. Probably like 6 weeks later, I quit my job and got into boxing. Yeah.
What a story. That's super powerful. I love that, brother.
Yeah, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. So I got 95% of my goal and my dream, up to 95%. Just missed it.
You went after it. And so many people are even afraid to go after it. Your tenacity and resilience throughout that process. And also, like you said, when you got your proper ass whooping, like you didn't, but that was a fuel for you at that point.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Where some people would have just stepped away and said, fuck it, I'm done. Like, you were like, no, I obviously, I've just been dabbling in this. Now it's time to go all in.
Yeah, that was definitely like a fuel to the fire. Again, as us men, we need those level of challenges to make us rise up to the occasion, right? You always want to put yourself in a circle that is better than you, right? Why? It makes you better. That's how you get better. And being able to make my elite debut against him, I had to rise. Even in the fight itself, even though I was suffering, dealing with that altitude, and he's already being such an elite and experienced fighter, it still made me fight so much of a better fight. Thereafter, I knew, cool, I need to grow more. I need to excel more. I need to do more. As athletes, we get to look at these things, and I get to say it to other former athletes too. Like, you look at when you were in competition, that's what that competition produced. It produced a challenge, and challenge produces growth because you have to either rise to the occasion, right, or crumple and fall, right? But if you want it, you're going to rise to the occasion. How do we take that same thing and transfer it over to life? Life, business, whatever it is we're into, those challenges are going to help us get better. We produce more, grow more, do more.
It's so interesting you say that, because I always reference to people that so many people feel like once you're done being an athlete, peak performance no longer exists. I'm like, that's not true. Like,
I agree.
you can get into a flow state and be in peak performance. You just have to channel it in a different way. It's not structured and laid out for you, like waking up and going to, practice at 6 a.m. and then doing this and then doing that. You have to create the structure, but you can actually still do it. It's just in a different context now,
Yeah, I agree with your point so much, bro. And yeah, it is just about recreating that structure. We are used to it. We know what it takes to get up every single morning, 5 a.m., boom, you out the door, training number one, boom, training number two, training number three, all through the day. It's all structure. You're eating, you're training, every single thing. It's your full-time job, right? But then, yeah, you just take that same exact thing and you recreate it for life. And you're going to use that same style, same purpose, just recreate it to what you're doing. And that's how you're going to dominate life.
Exactly.
Because being a former athlete, especially that high performer, you know the grit, you know the resilience, you know the drive that it takes. And when you implement that into everyday life, you can get super far, man.
Yeah.
Super far. You just got to find your purpose, what you love doing, your vocation, and yeah, implement it in that.
Absolutely, man. I love that. You and I speak the same language. It's good because it's hard. Like I said, it's hard to find people in this space. I found some people that are focused solely on nutrition for former athletes and things like that. It's almost like helping out veterans, people that served in the military. It's the same, very similar dynamic, peak performance, like your decision-making ability is, you're constantly making decisions like this. And then once it's done, it's done. And yet so many people, it actually, you always hear about, veterans because of PTSD and like helping out veterans and doing this and doing that. But athletes are very much in the same, a lot of times, even if they're holding a quote unquote good job.
Yeah.
You still see a lot of them are depressed, and a lot of them are like not happy because they're still living in that previous life. And then they just, because they didn't have a plan, because they didn't find their purpose or something they were passionate about.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden they're just like existing in this world where it's like, yeah, okay, this was somebody else's plan. Now I'm working for somebody else. And they never seek that satisfaction and gratification of life because they didn't really go into it with, or never found their true calling and their true purpose,
Yeah, 100%, brother. And it does not happen overnight. It happens over time. Again, as you said earlier, you had quite a bit. What was it, 9, 10 years, you said?
Yeah. I mean, like it took me from 19 to 34 to like really, I was the ebbs and the flows. And then finally I hit rock bottom. I was avoiding rock bottom, like just skating by. And then I finally hit rock bottom. It was about 9 years ago, when I finally was like, okay, let's start on this path to your true fulfillment. I just started doing different things and testing things out. But through that process, 2 years ago, I got into coaching, and now the athletes, literally just the last 3 months, learning out that process and figuring out like what truly speaks to my soul. It's been beautiful so far. It's just the beginning of the journey, but it's awesome,
Yeah, beautiful, brother. I'm so happy to hear that for you, man. And yeah, and a bit of like background on mine is, I finished about my career about 24 years old. So, I actually got into the sport of triathlon also, but it wasn't really, I didn't love it like how I loved boxing. So, I didn't stay too long in that career. That was just me something to fill the void. That was like a healthy fill the void. Thereafter, everything else happened, all the negatives. So I kind of went through the phase of like 27, 28, 29. just like complete suffering, man, just complete suffering, just being completely lost in the world, just terrible spaces until I finally also hit that rock bottom too. Being able to get out of that, I had to implement a lot of things in my life because again, men need purpose, men need direction. When we don't have purpose, when we don't have direction, we are now drifters. We just fill in time with whatever comes in our way. So, I got introduced to something called the MDK project, which I'm an honor man for that. That played a huge role in my life of giving me purpose, giving me direction. So I have a bunch of like-minded men in the brotherhood that is around me. So we stay purpose driven, we stay working forward. So now anywhere in my life, I make sure that I always have direction. Anyone that is around me, other men that are being lost also, that are being drifters, we need purpose, we need direction, right? And again, being high performers, we have to do tough shit in our life, right? Because that is going to allow us to grow and stretch. And when we're not growing, which I had to do, I had to grow after I found direction again, it made me happy because growth makes us happy. When we're not growing, it opens the door for depression, opens the door for unhappiness.
True, man. I love that. And I love your journey. And the crazy thing is that I don't know why there's only seems like 8 billion people in the universe. Like there's only select few of us that ever really decide that we understand there's something deeper and I got to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that leads us into that 2-3 year period of like just hitting rock bottom and just like going through that partying phase and all the crazy things that evolve. But we know that it's part of this journey, but we're not sure what's going on. But it's all of a sudden on the other, in that deepest, darkest piece, finding the light of really understanding like has a deeper meaning and this has a bigger purpose. And then you end up falling or like guiding yourself into this type of work. And that becomes just such a beautiful purpose. Like knowing that your existence and all of our existence is to impact the world on a greater level. And what we're doing is hopefully opening up that portal for others to see who they're capable,
Yeah, for sure. And I want to jump in 2 points on what you just said there, right? Another thing that you got to add into that is having a community of like-minded men to operate with. Because remember, when we're in sport, we're in a team, even boxing is, yes, you're in the ring by yourself, right? But you train the team. You train with other men around. And what does that give? That gives that support, right? That gives that accountability to train, and that gives that accountability to stay on track. And just having that support, that accountability, that team to work with and to win with and to operate with, it's a great feeling. It's a great feeling. And when we take that again and transfer that over to life, I still tell men that you need that same thing in life. Reason why, you are going to go through struggles. You are going to go through hard times. That same band of brothers there, you need to be able to speak with them, conversate with them, bring your issues, bring your troubles, bring your struggles to the group. And then that's where you can solve those problems in there and go back into the world. It's just like in training. When you're training with your training partner, you're trying to work on the skill that you need to fix. So when you go back to the ring, you are 100 times better.
Yeah, it's so true. Community, and that I think that's one of the things that when we break out of that is you hit the nail right on the head. We lose this sight of, because our world, like life just happens and we just start evolving and we start slowly day by day separating ourselves from community. And not having that. I've got one here in Austin that I am a part of called the Empowered Brotherhood, and it's a really great community. You need that with guys. Guys, we tend to just always take on the world on our shoulders, on ourselves, and we just isolate and become like the lone wolf.
Yeah.
And that's never going to be, this never ends well.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw, there was a guy that just, it happened all over the world. Men are committing suicide, but what was his name? I can't remember his real name, but his Twitch is his nickname. Like you look at him, like you would never ever think anything was wrong. You look at his stories, it's like, wow, he's up right now.
Days after his 9-year anniversary with his wife, yeah, like you said, you look at his social media, and it looks like he's always happy and he's dancing and things like, and he's bringing joy to so many other people, but that just goes back and makes you realize it's something he never dealt with, some sort of pain that he's lived with his whole life. So much focused on bringing joy to other people, he never wanted to figure it out inside himself.
And to bring it back to the community, the brotherhood, right? Like in my life, like counseling, therapy, all of those things, I've been to them before, but they didn't give me the impact that was created when I sat down with my class and my brotherhood, and we all conversated and we all let out our like major issues within our brotherhood, that we bled together, we struggled together, all these things. So I let that out in a trustable group of men, and that was such a turn up the leaf for me, because I mean, like, us as men, we're very suppressive, right? But suppression always leads to explosion. So when you're out drinking and you party, that's when those issues get a chance to come out. If you don't deal with them, then if you got the opportunity to deal with them, and that is a leaf turner. So that's one thing I like to say also to men. Have that community, that tribe of men that you can consult with, you can advise, you can speak with, get those struggles out. Because so many men around the world, Twitch, for example, we don't know the full story behind it, but there's something that was there, right? Unless we get the opportunity to speak about it, it's something that we have to avoid for all the rest of the men.
Yeah, that's why, I'm a big fan of the Movember movement that happens every November. I'm not sure if you are familiar with it at all, but it's, basically the whole context is you grow like a mustache over it. I don't always do that, but I usually like to keep the beard, but the whole context is like it focuses on men's health, prostate health, also men's suicide and depression, just the mental health around that. And it's so crazy because men are looked at as this figure that's like, you need to be strong, you need to be this, you need to be that. And yet why is it that men are committing suicide at a 3 times higher rate than women? It's because we're not allowed to express. We're not allowed, like you said, we suppress, but we don't express. And we just bury it. We just take on so much and we never talk about it. You can't do that for very long before you hit that explosion,
Exactly. And 9 times out of 10, when you hit the explosion marker, it is usually going to be something bad.
Probably 99.999.
Yeah. Exactly, right. So there's not much escape from there. So the solution to that is you got to have your brotherhood, man. You got to have that group to advise and to talk with and let out those issues, because we all struggle. There's nobody sitting at the table that is perfect. And brother, I'm looking at the time here. We got 4 minutes left on this. I want to make sure that I cover everything, and at least being that we have this live right now and going, I want you to be able to tell everybody where they can find you and just a little bit about your coaching, if you would like to.
Instagram for me, it's athletes.afterlife, and also LinkedIn. I'm just Jeff Murray on LinkedIn is the best places to find me. Facebook's pretty much the same. It's just Athletes Afterlife, but it's that's where most people can find me. Obviously, I have my podcast that I just started, Athletes Afterlife podcast, and that's just getting kicked off, and definitely enjoying that journey so far. But yeah, those are the main places people can find me.
Awesome. With the podcast, is it on YouTube? Is it on Apple? Is it on SoundCloud?
On Apple and Spotify currently right now. I'm looking to add it onto a couple other platforms. YouTube probably is going to be the next one that I look at, just because of the reachability on YouTube and how well known it is, just for ease of use. So yeah, those are going to be, but right now Apple and Spotify are the two that are on right now.
That's awesome, brother. I appreciate you putting all that out there. And again, as we said, you said earlier, it's hard to find other men in this space, but I'm a firm believer that the universe brings you your conversation. Us happening to come across each other, now here we are on a call.
Yeah. Super beautiful, like to be able to connect. And it does, like, you put the energy out there and the universe will reciprocate in a way that you don't even realize. And as soon as I saw, I was like, I gotta meet this guy. So yeah, we gotta connect for sure. But yeah, and for me with my podcast, I'm getting into the interview space. Definitely would love to bring you on when I start formulating a few more things going in that direction. I interviewed one person already, but would love to bring you on as a former athlete as well.
You just say the word and I'm there, man. I'm here to support you. We're in the same space here, and we're trying to do the same thing, and that is give back and help others, right? Because we've been through the struggle ourselves. So if we can help the man that's coming along to avoid the struggle or get out of the struggle, we are doing our job as men.
100%.
Right. There is no sweeter feeling than being able to pour back into someone.
No doubt about that, man. feels so good.
And especially us as men, we like to lead, we like to guide, we like to help. That's natural in us, right?
Thank you, brother. I grateful to be on and chat with you and connect. This has been a great conversation, man.
Thank you, brother. Not a problem at all. I want to hit you with two quick random questions, right? What is a book that you would recommend?
The book I'd recommend is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink.
I love that book, by the way. Let me throw one back out there real quick. Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. That's a awesome book also. So awesome.
Oh, that one I haven't read that one yet, but yeah.
Yeah, check that out. A lot of people are used to like Think and Grow Rich, X, Y, Z, but Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill is a great book. Now, here's my final random fire question for you. Still got less than a minute. Fun fact about yourself.
Fun fact about myself: I love to sing karaoke, and I don't really think I'm that great, but I love to do Elvis impersonations if I can on karaoke. So yeah,
that was a good one. All right, fair enough. You win with that one. Thank you very much. It's much appreciated. Much love to connect. Peace and love, bro.
Yeah, peace and love, brother.